Hi, my name is Claire Parker, and I did my honors interior design thesis on revitalizing student housing and specifically looking at redesigning student housing and lounge spaces at Meredith College. Some background information that I found during my preliminary research really talked about how dorms are a traditional part of the college experience. They are almost synonymous. When people assume you're going to college, you're going to live in a dorm. And so it's something that everyone who's studied at post-secondary university or college has kind of had experience with. However, oftentimes the dorms at the colleges are struggling to adapt to the changing needs. As society is evolving, the dorms can be a couple generations behind. And so it's very important that the dorms and that physical environment for those students are keeping up with changing society. And I actually had the opportunity to talk to a North Carolina State student athlete about his insight on living in a dorm, living off campus on student housing, and how he felt about those different things. And we really discussed about a lot about how the dorms and the off-campus apartments can meet your needs, but not oftentimes do they meet your wants. And so that was very important and something that we talked about with ideal factors and things. And then kind of echoing what he told me, I looked into a 2010 study at Longwood University, which is in Virginia. And when they sampled their population, they found that only 3% of their sample preferred traditional dorm housing. And this really shows the shift between people who want to live on campus all 4 years and now moving into not wanting to live there, or at least not loving the traditional dorm style. And then I also looked into dormitory lounges and study rooms that are in the residence halls and things like that. And one thing that I found was super important was an office furniture company called Hayworth. They really talked about the different purposes of collaborative spaces. And they found that there should be spaces to inform, spaces to do, spaces to think, and spaces to connect. And so they said that those are 4 collaborative spaces that should be driving forces for anytime anyone's designing a space where multiple people will be at the same time. And so I kind of went specifically and looked at dorm lounges and study rooms, and I found that those should really offer the do and connect collaborative space areas, as that's essentially what the dorm room lounges and study rooms are for. Additionally, we talked about the sense of belonging and connection to community, and how when you feel welcome in a space by your peers and by your physical environment, it's very important and it impacts your academic success. We also talked about levels of privacy, and McCartney and Rosenwasser did a 2022 study on privacy territories at dorms and how the different levels are impacted by the physical setup as well as interacting with peers. And so those findings have been displayed throughout the results that I'm going to share momentarily about how those different findings can be implemented. And then echoing that, Walt Gerard did provide a firsthand account of how well-designed spaces positively have influenced his academic experiences. So the first space I looked at was a Van Hall traditional dorm room, and I drew a version of what it looks like right now in Revit, and I took some photos from the Meredith College website of kind of how the furniture is looking and how students might traditionally set it up. With this, it offers minimal options for personal privacy. Again, with McCartney and Rosenwasser, those are things that are very important and impact a lot of different things about a student's well-being. And so that was something I really wanted to tackle when looking at this space. There's also limited storage options. There's a dresser provided that you can see under this bed here, but there is not a whole lot of other space for students to store things. So I wanted to try to maximize space. As you can see, the furniture does appear to be a bit dated, especially the desk chairs. And the configurations do not always optimize the usage of natural light, as we will talk about how light is super important for a student's well-being. Additionally, there are tall ceilings in here, as you can see here, but oftentimes a lot of vertical space is left unused, and we can find a way to maximize that. So I looked at the Van dorm, and I talked about how there's separation of beds and a creation of clear personal boundaries when you're looking at this bed, and they almost appear to be independent of one another because you have your own space, your own reading lights, and you have your own storage. And then looking at this here, you have more storage under the bed with built-in drawers. So that can kind of replace a dresser and be something that is clearly that student's space and belongings. Additionally, there are more spaces over here added with these built-in shelves. These allow for personal decorations, privacy. Oftentimes, one roommate might have a totally different style than the other, and so to kind of have their own individual space within that shared space to be able to personalize is important. I also felt that it was important to put one of the desks at least, in front of the natural light, as that can be super helpful for students' academics, and it really makes you not feel depressed. When I was speaking to Walt Gerard, he said that he can feel stuck between the walls and feel like the lack of natural light made him a bit depressed, and so it's good to be able to work near that space. The next student housing option that I looked at is an off-campus apartment. This is a Paloma bedroom at Paloma Raleigh. This is in the 4x4 loft floor plan. So this is how it is set up. And currently there is a tenant who is living in one of these spaces, and there was not enough room in the space for the dresser that they brought and the desk that was provided by the apartment complex. And so they ended up getting this small desk and configuring their space like this, which, as we can see, is not ideal. And Gerard also has experience with this apartment complex, and he also shared that he wished the space could comfortably fit a desk. So looking at this is how they have their current plan listed on the website and how it was then placed into Revit. And so using that configuration, unfortunately, there's not a lot of room to make major changes, but you can add additional furniture, such as a nightstand for storage, a dresser at the end of the bed, and really make sure we're using light finishes to brighten up the space, as well as putting a nice desk chair in here. And updating the bathroom is always a good choice for students to feel more at home. This is what I came up with for a proposed solution. And this is a little bit more feminine, but obviously as students can personalize their own space, you are able to kind of take control and have that authority. And so I decided to choose an accent wall, but still within lighter colors, a cooler color scheme here with the blues. And that's promoted, or that is seen to be, there's evidence that promotes relaxation and calmness among students. And T.C. Chan did a 1996 study at Valdosta State University, and he found out a lot about the 4 environmental factors that really impact spaces, including lighting. And having a light at the desk is very, very important. There are mirrors here that can make a space feel larger as they're reflective. The next space that I looked at is the Van Hall parlor, and a parlor is also considered a dorm lounge, things like that. Traditionally at Meredith, they have been called parlors. When you look at these photos, you can see that the furniture is outdated, it does not all match, and there is not enough seating for all of the residents that it serves. If you were to have a meeting with all the residents on that hall, there would not be enough space as it is currently laid out. And there are not clearly defined work and lounge spaces, and that's something that's very important in a design that's going to be collaborative, like Hayworth talked about, and have students be the most effective. So when I looked at this, I have the as-built here, and then I converted it into this space. So again, using the same footprint of the building, but I was able to maximize the seating. So I clearly defined that this is a lounge space area, and over here can be workspace areas. And so within the workspace areas, I was able to provide a group conference table style workstation, an individual, some more individual or group if you'd like to just work with a partner, and then a lot of extra seats up here for students to do as they please. You can join a Zoom call, do something you need to do, work with a partner, set up a screen, something like that. And that's super important for students to have that authority to be able to do so. I was also able to include some of the finishes that I felt would be beneficial in this environment, with some of the chairs being in the television console as well, actually being in that cooler color scheme, as well as the grays and the seating choices. Again, this countertop is here to promote independent work, and when I was looking into the Connect spaces from Hayworth and talking about those different uses and what's included in those spaces, it talked a lot about soft seating. And then Gerard's 2024 interview that I conducted with him, he really talked about how it's important to have a space where you feel comfortable with things like sofas. The last space that I looked at is the Oaks Apartment Study Room, and this is on the third floor of the Oaks Resident Hall on Meredith's campus. And one thing that I've noticed about this is that the furniture is not very cohesive, the space has not been maximized, and there is not a great solution for technology integration. As you can kind of see there, there's only some small outlets along the walls, and there are different study cubicle fixtures and some plastic chairs. There's also some other big leather chairs, and the furniture is all movable. And so as you can see in the as-built, there was a stack of chairs currently in there. However, with the new plan, you can open these wood doors and you can kind of see in and out, as right now you can't see if there's someone in there or not. So you just have to open the door and wonder, kind of a thing. So sometimes you can spook somebody taking a test or doing something like that. So it's important to really be able to see what's going on. Additionally, with this one, I was able to increase the capacity. So before there was about 7 seats, give or take, depending on how many of the plastic chairs you wanted to use. And this one has clearly defined seating for 12, which is very important. Again, there are those individual workspaces here and then group workspaces. When I was talking with Walt Gerard, he specifically mentioned that having monitors with computer adapter hookups like HDMI ports and things like that are very important because it allows students to put their work on a larger scale and to really be able to collaborate more. And so that's something that's very, very important. And additionally, on here, there are more than one collaborative area with technology and outlet power adapters. And so those are very important because most of our work is on the computer now. And so being able to stay charged while you do your work is vital. Additionally, talking about T.C. Chan in his 1996 study, he talked about how lighting is very important. It's one of the main 4 environmental factors. And so having this task lighting above the students' seats is going to be really important to promote productivity. And so in conclusion, I have found that providing students with a comfortable, supportive, and functional space is able to foster a sense of community. It is able to improve academic performance and enhance a student's well-being. This was found through many preliminary research sources, firsthand interviews, exploring the spaces in person, as well as coming up with designs that really echo what the research has said. And this quote, I feel like sums it up. It says, "My living situation affects me in every aspect of my life. It's been life-changing finding a place that I feel good living in." And that is the main takeaway from this presentation. These are some of the sources I used and specifically mentioned ones here in the slideshow. And thank you. That is my presentation, and I am very happy you watched.